Annyeong chingus! For today's video, we will be discussing the things you should know before visiting South Korea, specifically in terms of language. I have invited my fellow travel vloggers to share their experiences as well as to add more information on different aspects of the South Korean language. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep you notified once we upload another vlog. So, without further ado, let's get started. For starters, I will be sharing 5 cultural differences for you to have an overview of what we will be discussed first. Did you know that pointing with the index finger in South Korea is impolite? Instead, they use their entire hand to refer to someone or something. Well, that's educational and new for foreigners like us, because in our own country, the index finger is most often used to point at someone or something. To continue, did you know that in South Korea, you should address the elderly with a bow or handshake? Indeed, this is their sign of respect for the elderly. We can definitely relate this practice to one of our most notable culture, which is the pagmamano, that we often do to show respect to our lola and lola, nanay and tatay, and to our tito and tita. Right? These are hyong, which means older brother or older male friend, that is often used by younger male individuals. Anni, which means older sister or older female friend, that is used by a younger female individual. Oppa, which means older brother or older male friend, that is used by a younger female individual. And Nuna, which means older sister or older female friend, that is used by a younger male individual. Fourth, did you know that in South Korea, people introduce their partners with marriage in mind, or right before marriage, and the usual question is, when is the wedding? No matter how long and recent your relationship is. We Filipinos can't relate to that for sure. Because in the Philippines, if an individual in a family recently had a partner, the family demands to introduce his or her partner to them. And the individual would do so or voluntarily introduce their partner during the early stage of the relationship. It's commonly known that South Koreans use a pair of chopsticks to get their meal and a small spoon to get their rice. Since chopsticks are their primary utensils, they usually eat in a bowl for them to have an easier time getting rice and viand. Unlike other Southeast Asian countries, such as the Philippines, we use spoon and fork as our primary utensils for eating our meals. Now that I have given you some icebreaker-like information, we will be able to dig deeper into our agenda for today's video. I'm with one of my dear chingus in vlogging industry, Miss Alexa, to share with you her experiences and knowledge about South Korea's culture in specific terms. Alexa?
Okay, netizen, we can hear you. Have you been planning to travel to South Korea to find your oppa or nuna? Well, here are their cultures that you have to know since we may disrespect citizens in that country. South Korea and Philippines are both known for the trait of being family-oriented and respectful to the elderly. However, there are still cultural differences that we have to remember. South Koreans are usually punctual, and they strive to maximize their available time. Thus, we should avoid being late and should disregard our Filipino time where the party starts at 8 p.m. and you will arrive at 9:30 p.m. Guilty? So do I. That is why we should try to change our routine and be respectful of how Koreans value their time. Second, eating habits between South Koreans and Filipinos are quite different. South Koreans are very respectful with eating. For instance, eating while walking is inappropriate for adults. Thus, they eat street foods at the stall. Moreover, when eating with the family, elders should be served first before others can eat. Korea has a drinking culture which the Philippines not really have. If Koreans will invite you to drink, you should not refuse unless you have health concerns. Mainly, Soju or alcoholic drinks should be poured by another person. For example, person X will pour the drink to person Y, and person Y will pour the soju to the person X. These are some practices that you should remember when you visit South Korea to be able to feel the Korean vibe or their culture, which is the main purpose once you travel there. What about you, Brent? Anything to share?
South Korea is now recognized globally due to its influence on mainstream media, with the rise of popularity of K-dramas and K-pop idols. The culture in South Korea is effectively demonstrated in various K-dramas and K-pop songs. One significant part of their culture is their expressions. One way to effectively communicate is to express what we feel, and South Koreans are good at expressing their feelings and thoughts through communication. South Koreans have an indirect communication style. They speak firmly and use fewer gestures and facial expressions. They frequently rely less on words and pay close attention to a speaker's tone of voice, posture, and facial expression to deduce meaning. Speech is ambiguous because it frequently understates its point. This is done to keep the discourse civil and avoid embarrassment on either side of the conversation. The greatest strategy for navigating this jargon and determining its underlying meaning is to repeatedly ask open-ended questions for clarification. Examples of basic expressions that South Koreans encounter every day are ne, which means yes, annyeong, which means no, and 감사합니다, which means thank you.
Do you often wonder why the characters in K-dramas bow upon meeting someone, or why our favorite K-pop idols bow before introducing themselves? This is because bowing is a common form of greeting for South Koreans. They make a casual bow by dipping their heads while keeping their eyes closed. Another common gesture in South Korea is a handshake, where they mostly use their right hand. Their right and left hands are associated with the concept of yin and yang. The energy of the right hand is thought to be more yang, which denotes positivity, brightness, and masculinity. Meanwhile, the left hand is thought to be more yin, or negative, dark, and feminine. Hence, shaking hands using your left hand is believed to be unlucky. Most of us are also familiar with the finger heart gesture. The shape of a heart is created by slightly overlapping the thumb and index finger. It is thought to have started in 2010 with the actress Kim Hee-soo, and even the Westerns are now following the trend. Last but not the least, who can forget the V sign or peace sign that most of our K-idols do when taking selfies? This is the equivalent of saying cheese in pictures. I'm sure that you have once done one of these gestures in your life to express yourself more accurately, especially when you are with your friends or family. You can still use these gestures when you visit South Korea to have a pleasant encounter with the locals there. With that, I will mark you as a responsible traveler. Now, let's talk about business. Kylah?
In 1945, Korea is divided into North and South Korea, and both countries has a continuous war in between them up to this day. Did you know that ever since, South Korea's economy has been competitive and it became one of the leading economies in the world? Remember that the business cultures of South Korea and Western countries can be vastly different. Let's find out why. First is bowing and handshake. You can notice in K-dramas that there is a lot of bowing. This is to show respect to everyone and to their seniors. Koreans tend to bow and handshake at the same time. Bowing in South Korea is a norm. However, in business, the junior must initiate the bow. It must be deep where the torso bends from the waist by about 30 degrees and the senior will slightly bow. While in handshake, it is most common during first business meetings. The second is Confucian values. One of the reasons why South Korea's business culture can be vastly different from Western countries are its Confucian values that is deep-rooted into their culture. In business, they operate under Confucian values like obedience, responsibility, respect for authority, and the collective, and work hard and learn hard. This idea of them promotes that hierarchical roles promotes an equal relationship. And if this inequality is respected, it would maintain a harmonious relationship in the business. The third is kibon or jibon. This is a Korean word that means face. South Koreans want harmony in business, and in order not to lose face, they try to avoid confrontations or telling and making actions that would create awkwardness or problems in the business and its people. For example, they try to rephrase the words or phrases or questions and say, "I'll try" instead of "no." They are very protective of their kibon or dignity as a person and in the business. Hierarchy. Hierarchical roles in South Korea, especially in business, are important and is a followed concept up to this day. It is said that all relationships in South Korea are hierarchical. Employees or people that is in a higher position are treated with so much respect by their colleagues, while those in a lower position or juniors are subservient. Factors like marital status, age, level of education, and job position, etc. determines the ranking of a person in the country. Last but not the least is gift giving. In K-dramas, business partners like presidents or anyone in a higher position or a senior usually give gifts to each others and is usually expensive. Gift giving is common for them. It symbolizes the importance of the relationship and humility, and it is one of the ways to slowly build a relationship. They usually wrap it in red and yellow colors, which are the loyal colors. Gifts must be reciprocated at the same level. If not, you are considered inconsiderate.
South Korea is still progressing with the use of English as a medium for communication. For this is the universal language that is most often used to communicate in terms of globalization activities. As a K-drama and K-pop enjoyer, I could say that Koreans are not that fluent in speaking English, but they had word innovations translated and equivalent to some English words, expressions, and gestures, such as selfie, which means to take a picture of oneself, or selfie in English slang. Oppa refers to an endearment to one's boyfriend. Fighting, which means to cheer up or to motivate someone. Finger heart, which is often used in expressing love or appreciation to someone. And egyo, which means acting cute or the quality of being lovable, and many more.
그거를 남들이 막 이쁜 척 하는 거라고 보니까는 에라도 힘들어.
시작.
화이팅! 언니 화이팅! 언니 힘내요! 화이팅! 화이팅!
왜냐면 이게
These word innovations, the English language became more complex, since there were newly added vocabulary or word associations that can be used in expressing oneself on a daily basis. After all, K-drama and K-pop are a huge part of South Korean culture, especially in terms of language, since they tend to formulate new words, expressions, or slang, which are aesthetically pleasing to the ear. With the intention of making it relatable to the target audience, as well as in making these industries appealing not just on Asian countries, but to all nations. South Koreans introduced these new words or expressions through fascinating plots of Korean dramas and ear-capturing Korean pop songs, which are accessible through any social media platform, leading to a more complex English language as South Korean culture contributes to it, especially in creating trends. And that wraps it up. Kamsahamnida chingus for staying throughout our South Korea travel guide. Let us know your experiences in South Korea by commenting down below. Annyeong!